begin regardless. Okay, good evening, everyone. Somebody give me a hi sign so I can be sure you can all hear me. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being with us this evening. I am Patricia Wallace, President of the Board of Directors of the Aurora Historical Society. I will now duly call this 2022 Annual General Meeting to order. We will begin with a land acknowledgement delivered by AHS Curator Kathleen Vahi. Kathleen? Kathleen, you're muted.
Classic. Sorry, thank you. So we acknowledge that Aurora is located on the traditional territories of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples, whose presence here continues today. Aurora resides within the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and Treaty 13 from 1805 and the Williams Treaties from 1923, and we acknowledge them, and specifically the Chippewas of Regina Island First Nation and the Mississaugas of Scoopog Island First Nation as our closest Indigenous communities. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work, live, and play on this land. Thank you.
Kathleen. I would like to again welcome you all and sincerely hope that this meeting is an informative review of the business of the organization for 2021 and a gateway into a positive year ahead. We are honored to have with us this evening Minister Christine Elliott, MPP from Newmarket, Aurora, Aurora Mayor Tom Rackes, Councillors Sandra Humphreys, and I believe Councillor Gertner will be joining us at some point. Thank you for taking the time to attend this evening. To get us on with the formalities of the evening, first I will ask everyone to keep their microphones muted, as you've all done already. Thank you. Please be aware this presentation is being recorded. For the purposes of voting, like last year, we will do a reverse vote. When a vote is required, I will ask for nay votes only. If you wish to vote against the motion, please raise your hand and keep it raised until I indicate your vote is acknowledged. Alternatively, you may give your nay vote in the chat box. A reminder for our guests, only members in good standing are eligible to vote. There will be an opportunity for questions and comments at points throughout this presentation. And at the end, please use the chat box to type your questions or raise your hand. You will see the agenda on your screen, which you should have received prior to the meeting by email, along with other documents. I have a motion before me to approve the agenda as presented. It is moved by Helen Roberts and seconded by Michelle Primo. Those not in favor, please indicate. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you. The minutes of the 2021 AGM were also circulated in advance. I have a motion to accept these minutes as circulated. Moved by Martin Pavio, seconded by Helen Roberts. Calling for any errors or omissions, please. I'll give a moment so we can recognize. Sorry, counting on my staff to look for that. And I'm seeing none, that motion is carried. Thank you. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our mayor, Tom Rackes, to bring greetings from the town of Aurora. Mr. Mayor, over to you.
Thank you, Patricia. And good evening, everyone. And thank you for inviting me to the Aurora Historical Society's annual general meeting. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Now, while we're meeting for the second year virtually, I'm looking forward, I'm sure as all of you are, to meeting again in person soon. Now, we all know Aurora is growing and has a prosperous future, but it's our history that makes us unique and special. Our community is truly blessed to be home to many historic and unique locations, such as the Hillary House, Church Street School, Town Park, and much more. Not only do our town's heritage resources enhance the diversity, beauty, and richness of the natural and built environments, they also provide a greater sense of place and identity within our community. The town is committed to preserving that history and enhancing heritage buildings and streetscapes, and we are proud to have a strong partnership with the Aurora Historical Society that helps provide integral supports in arts, heritage, and culture as our town continues to change and evolve. The Aurora Historical Society has been a staple in our community for nearly 60 years and run by a dedicated set of volunteers who share a strong commitment to the preservation of our local history and sharing the stories of our past. I would like to express my sincere thanks to all current and past members of the Aurora Historical Society for your ongoing contributions to our community. And a special thanks to Patricia and all of you, the Board of Directors, for the hard work you do to preserve our town's rich legacy. Your hard work keeps our history alive and helps generations to come learn more about our beautiful town. I look forward to continuing our strong partnership in heritage preservation and to continue to support the important work by the Historical Society. Thank you, everyone, this evening. I'm looking forward to an enjoyable AGM.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much. And I would like to also extend our thanks to all of council and town staff for your willing assistance always. And I think we have some exciting times ahead. It is now my pleasure to introduce Minister Christine Elliott, who would like to bring greetings from the province of Ontario. Welcome, Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Patricia, and good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be able to join you this evening for your annual general meeting. And it's great to see you, Mayor Maracas, and thank you for your greeting as well from the town of Aurora. For over 40 years, the Aurora Historical Society has owned and operated the Hillary House National Historic Site. On behalf of the Ontario government, I want to thank the Aurora Historical Society for your continued dedication. Your educational and outreach programs have become local favorites, specifically the exhibits, historical tours, and special events. We are truly grateful to the staff and leadership team for your efforts to preserve and promote the history and heritage of our Aurora community. Last November, I had the pleasure of announcing that our government was providing the Aurora Historical Society with 2 grants through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. These grants were used to help recover from the impacts of the pandemic, diversify fundraising and programming initiatives, and restore infrastructure. I'm so glad that just a few months later, we are able to see the impact of these grants on our community. I believe organizations like the Aurora Historical Society truly enrich the lives of the people in Aurora and in fact across all of York Region. And our government is proud to call you a valued partner in our efforts to build strong, healthy communities. Thank you again for allowing me to join you this evening, and I wish you a very successful meeting.
Thank you so much, Minister. We are very grateful for the provincial support for heritage programming and especially for the support from your office. We look forward to a continued good working relationship. We hope you enjoy the evening. Yeah. So 2021 was an interesting year for all of us, to put it mildly. You would think that the closure of Hillary House due to the pandemic would result in the sound of nothing more than crickets for the AHS. That couldn't be farther from reality. In hindsight, I am amazed at how busy we were and what we were able to accomplish. Aside from governance matters, property restoration, and program offerings, I am especially pleased about the increase in public awareness for the AHS and the resulting positive feedback. You will hear more about these items on this slide here as we go through the evening. As you know, the property directly, can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. As you know, the property directly to the south of Hillary House, known as the Knowles Redmond House, has been vacant and under a planning application for some time. The AHS Board of Directors has been actively engaged with the developers and their planners for several years to ensure any concerns we had were considered. The Ontario Heritage Trust was also engaged in the process to assist the AHS as it pertains to the Heritage Easement Agreement. In addition, noted heritage architectural firm ERA Architects facilitated these discussions and acted as advisors to the AHS. As a result of these discussions, modifications to the proposed design were made and safeguards were put in place to protect Hillary House and the Aurora Historical Society. So in order to bring the membership and our community up to date, I have invited the representative for the developer, Mr. Bruce Hall of the Planning Partnership, to join us tonight to give you a brief look at the current planning application before the town. But before I hand it over to Bruce, Just a reminder that this is an information sharing only and is presented only as it pertains to Hillary House and the AHS. The planning application went to a public planning meeting 2 weeks ago where it passed and will now be sent to General Committee. After Bruce presents, I will have more comments about the protections for Hillary House. There will be time for a couple of brief questions while Bruce is still with us. Then we will have to move on with the agenda. Please limit the nature of your questions to those in the interest of the Hillary House property. If you would kindly type your questions in the comments section, I will get to them as time allows or offline after the meeting. So without further ado, Bruce, we thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Patricia, and good evening to you and your colleagues at the AHS, as well as Mayor Maracas and Minister Elliott and Councillor Humphreys. I would ask that perhaps if you could show the next slide first. I should have put them in better order, but just to give you some context, you can see that Horton Place and the Knowles Redmond House, which is the subject of this development application, and Hillary House are all good neighbors. And we have 3 very notable heritage resources all in a row. So that's just the context. If you could flip back to the first slide. And among other kind of directions that in looking at and processing this development application, our team in the town of Aurora, we're guided by the Northeast Old Aurora Conservation District Heritage Guidelines. And the subject property and the adjacent properties, Horton House and Hillary House, are within this historical context. So some of the important principles that we've looked at in doing this development are to identify and retain heritage resources and to ensure a harmony amongst those as they exist and as a development occurs. And specifically as it relates to development on this site, where high value heritage buildings are to be conserved, new development must be isolated to the rear and be secondary. And the guidelines do acknowledge that some form of development is possible on the subject site, the Knowles Redmond House site, subject to the retention of the existing heritage buildings. So if you could skip over to the third slide. And again, this is the street view of these fine heritage resources. And it really speaks to the built form, the strong built form of these heritage resources along Yonge Street and their character. Horton House and Hillary House, of course, are well preserved and maintained. I know Hillary House puts a lot of resources, time, and effort to doing so. The objective really is to get the Knowles Redmond House back to that state as part of this development, at the same time maintaining the character of Yonge Street from that view. Next slide, please. In terms of the site layout of the proposed development, if I had my cursor, I would show the white kind of square on the right-hand side of your screen, which is the existing Knowles Redmond House. And the purpose really is to retain, integrate, and restore that house as part of this development. The new development is the larger white mass that you see in the middle. Behind the gray, and that new development is entirely contained to the rear of the Knowles Redmond House, maintaining the character of that streetscape, as I noted. That lighter gray sort of hockey stick shape or L shape at the bottom is the underground garage connection, and we moved it from the Hillary House side to the Horton House side in order to lessen the impacts. The gray area that you see next to Yonge Street on the right-hand side of your screen is the driveway, and as part of the new development, there will be a consolidated driveway established to serve both Hillary House and the Knowles Redmond House. And this provides a wider throat and safer ingress and egress to the busy Yonge Street for both properties over the current kind of very sharp merge that you must make. And then on the north side of the property, where the existing carriage house garage is located, you see some landscaping, and the idea is that changes were made to this side of the building to lessen the impacts, as well as both on-site and off-site landscaping off this site being on Hillary House, in order to provide some landscape enhancements, which I'll go through in a moment, and enhance the heritage value. Next slide, please. This is an image of comparing the originally proposed development to the current development, and just to the point that you made previously, Patricia, while we were at Aurora Council several weeks ago. This was just going back there to provide council with an overview of the revised development. They received the information, no decision has been made at this point, and we're going to continue our dialogue with council and our neighbors around some of the landscaping and site plan matters. In terms of the changes to the plan, you can see that the proposal was significantly reduced in height, the equivalent of about 2 stories. It steps down to the rear more than it previously did at submission. The glazing is less extensive, and it has more of a residential kind of townhouse feel on the side facing Hillary House. Added treatment at the garage level. Statistically, the height was reduced by 6.5 meters or 2 stories. The floor area was reduced by about 20 to 22%, and the unit count was reduced. At the end of this engagement process, ERA felt that represented a much better fit and relationship than the previous proposal. Next slide, please. In terms of the engagement that we went through following the submission, AHS and OHT had expressed concerns with the original proposal and its relationship to Hillary House, and we expressed a willingness and commitment to work with AHS and OHT, which we've done over the last several years in a meaningful way through a series of in-person engagements, which seems very foreign today. I know the board members traveled several times during snowstorms. It seemed every time we had a meeting at ERA, there was always a snowstorm. And it allowed AHS and ERA and the OHT to better understand the implications of the proposal. AHS and ERA were genuinely felt that they were genuinely listened to, and that meaningful and impactful changes were made. And the conclusion at the end of this process, which allowed AHS to enter into the agreement, which Patricia will review in a moment, was that it balanced the development potential against enhancements to the heritage value of Hillary House through various measures and improvements, which I will go through in a moment. Next slide, please. In terms of these specific changes to the design and materials and reductions in the scale of the building, as I mentioned, landscaped enhancements, both hard and soft landscaping on and off site to increase buffering and some noise mitigation as well. Establishment of the shared driveway that I showed on the site plan for an improved functional design, and development of a pathway to connect Hillary House with potential parking in the works yard. I know that's conceptual at this point in time, but there's a commitment to do that if that is able to be achieved. And all these measures are set out within a binding legal agreement with the Aurora Historical Society, and it provides them with the confidence that their interests and will be protected and the measures will be implemented. Last slide, please. One of these is a construction management plan, and this ensures that the integrity of Hillary House, which is a valuable and sometimes fragile resource, will be protected during the construction process with pre and post building reports, which look at the condition and ensure that at the end of the process that there has been no damage. And if there is any damage, which I doubt there will be, but that it is rectified to the satisfaction of the AHS by the developer. And this includes the installation of vibration monitors during construction. So if the vibration becomes to be too significant, an alarm goes off and construction activity is stopped until it's rectified. Provision of offsite parking for Hillary House if during the construction part of that driveway it's restricted at any time. Securing dedicated offsite parking for trades, which we are investigating right now. The construction management plan provides a lot of detail around the construction period itself, working hours for trades to minimize the impact on Hillary House, and as well the opportunity for site meetings with those in charge of construction on site, and direct contact information for site superintendent where if and when there are any issues experienced. So that gives you a pretty good overview. I hope I kept that short enough. I'm happy to answer any questions of anyone in attendance.
Thank you, Bruce. That is a very detailed overview, actually, and there's a lot of information there. In my remarks, I run the risk I will be repeating some of what you said, but I think it bears repeating because there's a lot of information, as I said. So, as Bruce said, we met with the planning partnership, Bruce and his entire team, many times since 2017, when an ad hoc committee of the board was formed. Our committee took extensive professional advice and eventually engaged the proponent in a memorandum of understanding in mid-2020 to secure these protections. Thereafter, we moved to put it into a legal agreement. This agreement was signed just 2 weeks ago, and that is the agreement that Bruce is the legal binding agreement that Bruce is speaking of. The agreement provides, as Bruce has said, in part pre and post construction surveys, vibration monitoring inside Hillary House, opaque hoarding during the construction phase so that we can still enjoy our beautiful property here during that period, commitment to repair any damage that results from the construction, and a letter of credit to assure that. An agreed landscape plan to note, yes, there will be tree removal during this process, but the plan is that there will be double, and Bruce, you can correct me if I say this wrong, double the number of trees planted that will be removed. That is the current plan. So we were very adamant that the greenscape be protected and be used as buffering between the two buildings. Also, as Bruce said, assistance with the construction of the pathway from Hillary House to what we hope is the town's still willingness to make a parking lot back there on the old works yard. And I think that that might end up being a good thing for the entire community. So we're hoping that that's going to work out well. And very importantly, all costs for to the Historical Society relating to this development will be borne by the developer. This will not cost the Historical Society any money at all, including for legal fees, our independent, our choice legal advice. So the AHS Board of Directors, current and past, feels that our concerns and those of the Ontario Heritage Trust have been addressed. Given that both properties fall within the identified area of the town's promenade plan, it is inevitable that the property will be developed. We are encouraged that this plan keeps the original house and feel that this agreement is a positive outcome for the AHS and that the legal agreement protects our interests. So if you have any questions at this point while Bruce is still with us, if you would type them in the chat box as quickly as you can so that we can answer those for you. Or Kathleen, if you're seeing any hands that I can't see. Wow, Bruce, looks like we did a good job. Oh, okay. We have, what is the plan of completion? Are you referring to the completion date?
Yeah, the completion date, Patricia, please. Sorry.
Thank you, Javed. Bruce, could you address that, please?
Certainly, Patricia. We are back in the city planning process, getting comments back. We would ideally like to get a favorable approval and achieve that, before the end of the year, this term of council. I think it would be important for this council to deal with it. Once we have approval, the process of securing site plan approval and building permits, will take about 6 months or something like that. And then construction is anticipated to take 14 to 16 months.
Thank you, Bruce. Next question from Lisa. What is opaque hoarding? I can answer that because that's one of the things I asked for in this is we didn't want chain link or metal fencing only around it. So currently you've seen the new hoarding in front of the build at the United Church site. So in other words, something that you can't see through, so that can go on over there and we can still have the enjoyment of our site. That's what opaque hoarding refers to. Any other questions? Okay, that's great. If you do have other questions, please feel free to email me at president@aurorahs.com and we will try to get your questions answered. Super. I thank you very much, Bruce. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but I know you're a busy guy. So we certainly understand if you want to sign off. Thank you. Thank you again. We really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate all the work that the board and the ad hoc committee did and has done and will continue to do. And it's been a pleasure working with you. And I will take my leave and get some dinner.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. Good night.
Good luck with your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that was great. So as I said, the only investment that we've made on this project was several tanks full of gas to get down to those Toronto meetings and parking. So there we go. So we'll move on and I will turn the floor over to Treasurer Jeffrey Daw for the Treasurer's Report. Jeff.
Thanks. Thank you, Pat. And if we were meeting in person, this is where I would jump in and say enough for the really exciting part of our meeting, but that joke kind of falls flat when you're doing this virtually. So I will just extend my welcome and thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. And I do hope that you had the opportunity to go through my report that was sent out with the AGM package. And as Pat's already mentioned a couple of times, 2021 was certainly another interesting year. But I'm pleased to report that we seem to be getting back to a more normal mode of operation. And it's reflected in things like percentages of our total revenue, admissions and community events, as well as donation and fundraising were up, which shows how we are diversifying our revenue stream. And as I said, a sign of returning to more normal operations. It also shows the hard work of the board and the staff in terms of securing some of that outside financing. Our membership numbers were up, another good sign, excuse me. And finally, on the second page of the balance sheet under liabilities, line 2700, shows the CEBA loan, and that is the Canadian Emergency Business Account. You may remember from last year's meeting that this is a loan from a financial institution, which in our case is the Bank of Montreal, guaranteed by the federal government. And the terms of that loan, which were recently changed, are such that as long as 2/3 of the loan, or $40,000, is repaid by December the 31st, 2023, it was 2022, then the remaining $20,000 is converted into a grant. And it is in our intention to repay this loan this year, that is by December the 31st of 2022. Slide, please, Kathleen. We're all at Hillary House, but we're all in different rooms. This slide is showing our funding. And on the left is very typical: donations, memberships, gift shop fundraising events, which was, we got back to fundraising this year. Rentals Canada Summer Jobs Grant, we typically have students, which is funded by that program. The Community Museum Operating Grant, an OTF Capital Grant, which was used in the renovation project for the veranda that Alan Lambert will be speaking to in a bit. And of course, the Town of Aurora Operating Grant. Under emergency funding, we continue to receive the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy. We received a CMOG Digital Capacity Grant, which Kathleen used to bump up some of our technology capability, and she'll speak a bit to that in her report. We received some COVID-19 business support grants, specifically the energy cost rebate and the OTF Resilient Communities Fund grant. And we also received a reopening fund for heritage organizations, the Museum Assistance Program. All those grants were a substantial help in our operations this year. Nothing, slide. So this slide is very similar to what we presented to the town when we did our budget request back in November. And you can see we have our 2019 audited, 2020 audited, and 2021 unaudited financials. You can see that our operating revenue is up by about double from the previous 2 years. Fundraising was up substantially, and that is the two fundraising events we had. One was the Scotch tasting, which was at the start of last September. And during these periods, it seems like a month is about a year. And then, of course, a very successful Hillary Huss Ritual Ball, which was in October. Our municipal funding was up slightly. Grant revenue was up substantially, the emergency funding, as well as the COVID-19 specific funding, for a total revenue of $273,184. Our operating expenses, of course, were up as we were doing more work. But I want to point out that if you look at our 2019 operating expenses, in 2 years, they went up just slightly under $800, which really speaks to the prudent financial work that our staff and board members do in order to keep us moving along with a tight hand on the fiscal controls. Fundraising expenses, of course, because we had the two events. Restoration costs, $43,000, and that was for our veranda project up front. So our total expenses of $2,002,749, and of course, leaving us with a revenue over expenses of $70,000. And it's important to our operating funding as we move forward next year, or this year, pardon me, because I think we all hope that we will not be getting emergency funding as we get back to a much more normal footing on our operations. So that really is, excuse me, that is my financial report. I would certainly be happy to take any questions. And if not, then I will move that we approve the 2021 Treasurer's Report.
So thank you, Jeff. We will we'll move and second that, and then I'll ask for questions. So you have moved it. I have a seconder. John Smale has seconded your motion. And so I will call for questions or comments, if there are any. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. The motion is to approve the 2021 Treasurer's Report. Nay votes only, please. Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Pat. And may I please have a motion to approve the 2020 audited financial statement? They were circulated with the package.
You are moving that yourself,
I am
Jeff?
moving that. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion to second. Sorry, I have a seconder for that motion. That is John Smale. And so therefore I will call a vote to approve the 2020 audited financial statement as circulated. Nay votes only, please. Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you. And I will, it's too many years sitting in another chair that called for motions as opposed to moving them. I will move that we receive the 2021 unaudited financial statements.
Thank you. And those are as circulated. And I have a seconder for that motion as well. That is also John Smale, who is, by the way, our former treasurer. And I will call for nay votes only, please. And seeing none, that motion is carried.
And finally, I would move the appointment of our auditors for 2022, that being Bateman, Graham, Fitzpatrick, Chartered Professional Accountants from Newmarket.
Thank you. I have a seconder for that motion. That is John Snell. I will accept nay votes only, please. And seeing none, that motion is carried. Super. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeff. And thank you for the work you do on that, because better you than me. That's tough work. So, all right, moving on, I would like to turn the floor over to our curator, Kathleen Vahi. Kathleen?
Thank you for the introduction, Patricia. And it's nice to see so many familiar faces here tonight, although virtually. So throughout 2021, the AHS continued their commitment to care for Hillary House and its collection, as well as offer programming, educational opportunities, and events to engage the community. In 2021, we were fortunate again, as previously stated by Jeff, to receive the Canada Summer Jobs Grant, which allowed us to hire emerging museum professionals, Simone and Grace, for 14-week contracts in the summer. We also welcomed an intern, Juliana, from Fleming College's Museum Management and Curatorship program. Their assistance and contributions on projects in 2021 was extremely helpful, and we are really grateful to be able to help them with their professional development as well. With the assistance of Simone and Juliana, we continued with our ongoing collections management projects, which included inventorying, cataloging, and photographing over 200 artifacts this year. And following the success seen in 2020, we did continue the transcription project with another 70 letters transcribed by a team of 20 volunteers who contributed about 250 hours to the project. And for anyone who has ever tried to read handwriting, on the bottom picture there, that is a little taste of what the doctor's handwriting is like. One of the most exciting curatorial projects in 2021 was the development and installation of our newest exhibition, A Look Outside Hillary House. This outdoor permanent exhibition consists of 7 interpretive panels installed around the Hillary House property that provide guests with information that's not normally covered during our inside guided tour. There are also digital elements on most of the panels, which provide additional information in a new and engaging way. So we encourage you, if you haven't already, to swing by Hillary House when the snow melts to learn something new. In 2021, we were happy to bring back some of our regular programming as well as a few new offerings. We quickly adapted to offer virtual, online, or outdoor offerings when the COVID-19 pandemic restricted in-person access to Hillary House, and we carefully planned for when in-person activities were permitted. And in order to provide this programming, as Jeff mentioned before, we did purchase some new technology, including a Zoom subscription, which we're using today, and some new recording devices with the assistance of several grants. The Treasured Speaker Series returned for 8 presentations, and this time in a virtual format. And although this was different than what we are all used to, hosting the speaker series virtually allowed us to continue to offer these presentations despite the restrictions, and even facilitated having participants and hosts from all over Ontario. We also offered a 3-part How to Care For virtual workshop series that provided participants with information, tips, and tricks on how to care for their own family treasures and heirlooms at home. And for the first time, we hosted a hybrid strawberry afternoon tea where participants picked up their food packages and then joined us on Zoom for a presentation on the history of tea, which you can see in the picture on the left there. And we continue to focus on creating and putting out interesting and educational social media content to engage with our online audiences. The AHS also participated in the National Trust for Canada's Historic Places Days, and were featured on their social media channels in Takeover, which introduced the AHS in Hillary House to a national audience. And as it was safe to do so, we began offering and participating in in-person events. We hosted the second annual Victorian Harvest Tea on the beautiful Hillary House grounds and participated in 2 outreach events at Town Park through Culture Days. Closer to the end of the year, and the pictures on your slide here, was the wreath making workshop with the help of Garden Aurora. And then the much awaited return of a family Christmas saw the house bustling with new and familiar faces. And we were so excited to see the house just full of visitors enjoying the festivities. In 2021, our volunteers continued to demonstrate their dedication to the AHS and Hillary House. And we're so grateful for their contributions and enthusiasm to help with absolutely any project. With the help of volunteers, we were able to take out all of the plants around the front of Hillary House to get it ready for the veranda restoration project. Garden Aurora provided numerous hours getting Hillary House ready and decorated inside and out for the Christmas season. And as I mentioned, assisted with the wreath making workshop. And with the help of our numerous other volunteers, we were able to run events such as the strawberry tea, the harvest tea, and the family Christmas. Hillary House was also the beautiful backdrop for film productions in 2021, including the Sawbones Society, which is the middle picture, and then the Aurora Economic Development Corporation's See You in Aurora project, which are the ones on the left and right. We plan to continue promoting Hillary House as a rental venue for photography, small scale film productions, and events. Right, so our measurables for 2021, we were very pleased to be able to welcome 615 people into Hillary House, and that's up from 349 in 2020. And because of our increase in online offerings, we were able to have 597 people engaged in virtual programs. And we rely on our AHS, on volunteers for our AHS governance and a wide array of projects, as I mentioned, and we're so extremely grateful for their time. And so we recorded 2,784 hours performed by 91 volunteers, and that's up from previous years. Our membership was also up to 162, and our social media followers landed around 9,293. The biggest excitement for me is our online engagement. So our increased focus on social media has proven successful with 20,600 online engagements in 2021, which is over an 80% increase from 2020, showing that our content is really resonating with our online audience. So we will continue to do that into this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. And so I just got to say, no crickets here. Like, and that's not all. There's more to tell you. So I'm going to next hand it over to our Vice President, Alan Lambert, to give a report on grounds maintenance. But before I turn it over to Al, just a note that we have changed the name of this portfolio from landscaping to grounds maintenance. And I need to take a moment and express huge thanks to John Baer, who has previously and for a long time led the charge on landscaping and is by no means gone from it. John will still be heavily involved along with Al, just a bit of a reporting structure change there. So over to you, Al.
Thanks, Patricia, very much, and welcome everybody. It's great to be able to spend this AGM with you. And I do also want to reiterate my thanks to John and Marjorie, who I know put in lots of hours to support particularly the outside of the house, and without them, we would not be where we are. I do also want to acknowledge the town and the support that we get both from the town, Garden Aurora, and various other local businesses who do provide us services, provide us consideration in kind for supplies, etc. So I do want to sort of upfront just thank everyone for support. Just in terms of what would be sort of our regular routines around the grounds. Typically, we have the sort of spring and fall cleanup, the sort of preparation of gardens, and then the care and feeding of gardens, the maintenance of our lawns, our tennis court, etc. And overall trying to also sort of maintain the driveway as the year progresses. That's kind of our normal maintenance. What I just wanted to share with you tonight by way of highlights, a couple of things, and Kathleen actually did make reference to the removal of the veranda plantings. That was work that needed to be done both on the east of the house as well as the north of the house in order to properly prepare for the veranda restoration. So that was a big highlight. The second, and it has happened more recently, was the removal of the sugar maple, which stands, and we've got a picture that we'll show you in a minute, which stands just to the south of the house, which has been deteriorating over the years, and with the support of the town and advice of the town arborist, we have taken that down. However, the good news is we've left part of the trunk that we do hope that we're going to be able to engage some artistic resource to perhaps provide for us something kind of interesting from a sort of public art perspective. So that picture of the tree coming down is but a week old. So we are pursuing opportunities to perhaps do something a bit artistic with that. And of course, the picture on the right is our leaf raking volunteers that come in both spring and fall and produce and really help us to prepare the grounds for the very events that Kathleen has referred to. So Kathleen, I'll just get you to move to the next slide in terms of the way forward. We project 2022 to be a fairly standard year. What we do need to pay attention to immediately is the sort of plan for replanting the gardens again to the east and the south, or the east and the north, sorry. And look forward to doing that, and just sort of normal maintenance of the grounds through the year. So Patricia, that is my report back. All good news on the grounds maintenance front.
Thank you, Al. And just another word on the tree. We were so sad. We've been maintaining that tree for a long time because it is beloved. It is over 150 years old. We know that. But unfortunately, it became a danger to not only the house, but to people. It was sad to go. I think we all shed a tear that day. But thank you, Al. I'm going to turn it back to you, however, because now for the restoration section, if you want to take the first part of this, and then I'll go in from there.
Thanks, Patricia. I won't even mute myself. I'll just keep rambling. So thank you again. We have made mention in a couple of points, both in Jeff's report on finances. Kathleen made reference, and I did want to provide the AGM with a little bit more information just in terms of the veranda restoration. As we had reported last year, we were in the planning stages at that point. We were able to go to tender and procure a contractor to help us out. And just so you all understand the kind of scope of what needed to happen, we did know that there were a number of both floorboards and rim boards that were getting spongy, were in disrepair, and quite frankly didn't either look good and were a little bit of a safety challenge. So we knew, just looking at the veranda, that was part of our scope. We also knew that there were some areas on the underside, and this was again with the advice of ERA architects. There were some areas of the underside that needed to be sort of underpinned, and in some cases new joists installed, which again you don't see it, but you know it's again something that had to be done. And as you can see profiled on the picture on the right, which was the very recent festive decorations, you can see that all of the lattice panels that adorn all sides of the veranda were replaced and repainted. The other work that needed to be done based on the slope of the land, which in many cases was sloping into the veranda is we needed to regrade some of the landscaping, again, mainly to the east and mainly to the north of the veranda. So we're pleased that we were able to profile the veranda restoration, both at the event that Minister Elliott had referred to in November. And again, we very much thank the Ontario Trillium Foundation for that grant. Without it, we would not have been able to proceed with this work, but also able to profile the veranda during the festive season. So I did want to report to the AGM that we have been able to move forward with that project. A few little fix-ups once the snow and the ice disappear, but I think we would report that the veranda is now in good shape. Patricia, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Al. Thank you very much. While we're still on the restoration bit, the next project, while there are many restoration and repair projects that need attention, the one calling out to us immediately is the westernmost addition to the house, known as the summer kitchen. This portion of the house has received the least remediation and conservation work and is in the poorest condition. In addition to concerns about the foundation and supporting structure of this section, there are increasing concerns about animal infestation and potential intrusion into the rest of the house. We are beyond the patchwork fix stage. We have engaged an architect to conduct a feasibility study, including cost estimates. And it is our vision that restoration of this space for safety will also provide additional general use space. We are also, I don't want to move on too quickly from that because this is an important project and a significant one. So I'll just pause there. We are also costing other similar smaller restoration projects at the same time, like the nursery and the roof of the veranda, which needs to be repaired. We're hoping also that the work on the fence to be done by Parks Canada that was delayed due to the pandemic will be done this summer. So there are only 3 more words to say on that: fundraising, fundraising, and fundraising. So one of the things that I thought the mayor was going to refer to, because it's really exciting, but I guess he was leaving that excitement for me to say, is if you don't know already, the town of Aurora has voted to give the Aurora Historical Society $150,000 for the rehabilitation of Hillary House in a matching grant. So we are actively seeking out big funding so that we can realize every one of those $150,000 and make this and other projects come to fruition. We will need your help, but we'll talk more about that later. Moving on. You may remember in 2015, the AHS struck a deal with the new owners of Horton Place, 2 doors down, that you saw in Bruce's presentation, to move an early drive shed, also known as the coach house, to the Hillary House property to save it from demolition. The building was dismantled board by board, moved and stacked on the Hillary House property, with the cost of the work borne by the AHS. The intent was to re-erect it on our property. Although this was a well-intended action at the time, the dismantled structure lay fallow in an unprotected and unsafe state for the next 6 years. In annual discussions by the board, it was agreed there was no money to tackle this project and that all fundraising efforts needed to be directed to Hillary House for the foreseeable future. In 2021, the board decided to have it assessed for market value and viability. The result was that the cost to rebuild to code and the practicalities of funding ongoing maintenance meant that it would likely never be re-erected on the Hillary House property. Therefore, a buyer for the wood was sought and eventually found. The wood pile has been removed and all original costs to the AHS were recovered in the deal and then some. The area is now clean and safe and usable. When looking at our financials for last year, that's why you see a large increase in the operating revenue over the previous year, because of the sale of that wood. Sad but true. That concludes the reports. I have a motion to accept the reports. It is moved by Ronan Grunberg and is seconded by Dan McGowan. I will be calling for nay votes, please. Seeing none, that motion is carried. Board of Directors. I would really like to thank our 2021 Board of Directors and acknowledge the leaving of two of our directors, Jeffrey Tom and Jan Stainer-White, who have moved on to new projects and new areas of the province. And we thank them for their energy and their guidance. Also, in 2021, we made application to the town of Aurora to have a member of council sit on our board as an ex officio non-voting member in order to enhance the communication between the town and the AHS and take their additional advice. And we were very pleased to welcome Councillor Sandra Humphreys to our board in December. So, and I think I know she is here with us tonight, and another welcome to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. I'm going to relinquish the chair for this next portion and hand it over to Vice President Al Lambert for the election of directors.
Thank you, Patricia. And I wanted to mention that over the course of November and December and January, we had put out a call for new board members, both in local papers, social media, etc. Unfortunately, there have been no expressions of interest in terms of those that would be interested to join the board of directors. So we are not in a position to put forth nominations of new board members. However, we have 3 board members whose terms are expiring. Patricia Wallace, Jeff Daw, and Ronan Grunberg. In conversations with all 3, they have graciously agreed to stand for re-election to the board. So Patricia, I would like to move that the 3, Patricia Wallace, Jeff Daw, Ronan Grunberg, be elected or re-elected to the board of directors.
Thank you, Al. I believe there is a seconder for that motion, and that is Lisa Dwyer. If you would like to call the vote, Al.
So I would, again, in the spirit of nay votes only, I would look for anyone who would have a nay vote to that motion. Seeing none, hearing none, Patricia, I will consider that passed.
Thank you very much. And I personally look forward to continuing to work with this great group of people. It's an enriching experience, and I learn something new every day.
And I'm personally glad there's not only 2 of us if the 3 of you didn't get reelected. So I'm very glad.
All right. So looking forward to 2022. I've spoke about the matching grant from the town. That is just such big news for us and such a huge opportunity. I'm hoping all of our membership will step up with ideas, promotions, money, and a lot of other things to make that really happen for us. But other exciting things, we are excited to host the traveling exhibit from the Royal Botanical Gardens with a targeted opening date of March 7th. There will be a members only opening reception followed by open to the public as pandemic protocols allow, of course. Following that, there is a huge opportunity for community involvement as our curatorial staff put together the next exhibition entitled Growing Up Aurora. Watch for more information on being part of that. For you golfers out there, a golf tournament fundraiser will be held at Westview Golf Club on June 24th. And more information on how to sign up for that coming soon, probably within the next couple of weeks. And of course, keep your fingers crossed. We are planning an in-person Hillary House Ball at the Royal Venetian Mansion in October, tweaked for a safe and enjoyable guest experience and better than ever. To close off the evening, before I open the floor to questions and comments, I would like to thank past President John Green for continuing to represent the AHS on the town's Heritage Advisory Committee, and Bob Roberts for representing us on the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame Board of Governors. We appreciate the time you folks give to these alliances. Thank you also to Garden Aurora for the significant and ongoing contributions. Kathleen told you the number of volunteers this past year. To thank them all by name and contribution tonight would have us here until tomorrow morning. But please know that your contributions are greatly appreciated, and it's just plain fun to work with you all. Thank you to all of our event volunteers, our around the house volunteers, curatorial volunteers, and especially to our amazing board and our permanent staff, Kathleen and Julie. Thank you. We have a couple of minutes for questions or comments. So at this point, again, you can type it in the chat box. Kathleen and Julie are one if you would prefer to speak. Just give it another second for people to be typing away. And again, if you can't formulate your questions just now, or if something comes up later you think of, you are always welcome to message me at president@aurorahs.com. Jeffrey Dahl would like to have a word.
Two things I look forward to: opening and not having to say I'm on mute. I wanted to thank our bookkeeper, pardon me, Agnes Little, who's been a big help to me. She keeps me out of trouble most of the time, so I do appreciate that. And I did thank her in my report, but I just wanted to mention it.
Thank you. Yes, she's been a great addition to our operations here. Anybody else? Comments? They don't have to be questions. They can be comments, things that you like, things that you'd like to see. No? Al?
I'm not sure an AGM could go by, Patricia, without actually thanking you for all of your endless amount of hours keeping us in line as best you're able. But I do certainly on behalf of the board want to thank you for it's been a tough year all around. You put in more hours to this endeavor than I could ever have imagined, but thank you on our behalf.
Thank you very much, Al. My pleasure indeed. So I guess if there's no other comments, then we will adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn from Michelle Primo, and that is seconded by Martin Pavio, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you all very soon. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.